Have you ever felt, in the unsettling silence of any given night, that your mind pulses to a tune few can hear? That there is a frequency within you that hears what is unsaid, that perceives the nuances hidden between words, that feels the weight of a truth that transcends the superficial? It's as if you carry an internal receiver that picks up signals the world prefers to ignore, signals that expose the fragility, depth, and complexity of human existence. This attunement isn't for everyone. It belongs to deep thinkers, to souls who aren't satisfied with ready-made answers, who tirelessly seek life's most authentic meaning. Carl Jung, the explorer of the depths of the human psyche, dedicated his life to understanding this rare and intense frequency. He knew that these thinkers live in a reality divided between the illusory comfort of the majority and the luminous discomfort of expanded consciousness. Thinking deeply is not a pastime. It is a painful and beautiful journey, a crossing of seas where light and shadow intertwine, where certainties are deconstructed to make room for a broader, yet often solitary, wisdom. Have you ever noticed that those who dare to see deeply carry an invisible weight? Expanded consciousness brings the burden of seeing the world's contradictions, the silent injustices, the paradoxes that defy common logic and emotional stability. This frequency of truth is both a call and a trial, a call to free oneself from the illusions that numb one, and a trial to endure the pain that truth reveals. You who hear this invitation may recognize this latent restlessness, the urgency to not accept the obvious, the need to question what is said and what is hidden, the desire to find meaning amidst the chaos. Jung taught that this attunement is not only a privilege, but a profound responsibility. Those who live on this frequency are called to confront not only their own shadows, but also the collective shadows, the pain of the world, the silence of those who refuse to see. And yet, this expanded vision brings an immense gift, the power to transform, to heal, to illuminate paths that remained in darkness. In this video, I invite you to dive with me into this unique universe, the inner world of deep thinkers, guided by Jung's wisdom, where light and shadow dance in tense and fascinating harmony. Prepare yourself for an encounter with your own depth, to listen to that inner frequency that calls for authenticity, courage, and transformation. Because the truth that pulses within you is what the world needs, even if it's not always ready to hear it. If the frequency of truth resonates within you, know that you are not alone in this complex universe, but you are also not free from the dilemma that accompanies deep thinkers. Imagine carrying an internal beacon that illuminates dark corners of the world and the soul, revealing both hidden beauty and the wounds hidden beneath the surface. This light disturbs, disconcerts, and challenges the status quo of superficiality. Carl Jung warned us about this paradoxical condition. The deeper the consciousness, the more acute the perception of shadows, both internal and external. This coexistence between light and shadow is not static. It is a continuous dance, sometimes harmonious, sometimes tense, that defines the experience of the spirit seeking truth. Deep thinkers cannot avoid this confrontation. They see the contradictions clearly, the duality between what the world presents and what the soul demands. They perceive the hypocrisy of social masks, the emptiness of ready-made answers, the pain of emotional disconnection that many prefer to ignore. Sarah, our companion on this journey, knew this tension well. She felt the anguish of wanting to live authentically, and at the same time be understood, the fear of losing herself in the vastness of her own inner world and the urgency to connect with something greater. Jung described this internal struggle as an essential part of the process of individuation, the path of becoming whole by integrating the opposites that dwell within us. This journey is marked by moments of clarity and confusion, courage and fear, surrender and resistance. And it's not just solitary. It's also full of meaningful encounters. Finding souls who vibrate on the same frequency of truth is rare, but fundamental. It's these encounters that sustain the journey, that offer a safe space for the full expression of authenticity. The tension between the desire to be authentic and the fear of social isolation can leave deep thinkers feeling stuck at a crossroads. On one side, the invitation to live their deepest truth, even if it means swimming against the tide and facing incomprehension. On the other, the temptation to conform, to adapt, to silence, to maintain external peace, but at the cost of their own essence. This conflict is not simply a choice between right and wrong, but a delicate dance between preserving integrity and ensuring emotional survival. Jung shows us that individuation is not a linear journey, nor an achieved state of perfection. It is a dynamic process, full of challenges, where awareness of the conflict between light and shadow is a sign of growth, not failure. Depth of thought brings with it the responsibility to care for oneself with compassion, so that the weight of the expanded gaze does not become an unbearable burden. This care involves learning to recognize when to retreat, when to rest, and when to seek support. Because even the freest spirit needs rest and support to continue its journey. If you feel this frequency pulsing within you, I invite you to subscribe to this channel. Here we've created a space for deep reflection, where the complexity of the soul is respected and the desire for truth is celebrated. Subscribing is more than just watching videos. It's being part of a community that embraces depth, values critical thinking, and an open heart. Together we can strengthen this network of free spirits who are not content with the superficial and seek, with courage and vulnerability, the fullness of being. This is the invitation not to hide, not to deny your light or your shadow, to embrace the challenge and beauty of living in the frequency of truth. Are you ready for this journey? When one is tuned in to the frequency of truth, the inner world reveals itself as a vast labyrinth, a complex and intricate web where every thought, every emotion, and every memory carries hidden layers. Enigmas that invite careful, profound, and respectful exploration. Sarah, our companion on this journey, knew this territory well. Her restless mind roamed inner corridors as rich in mystery as they were challenging, seeking meaning in the complexities of human existence. At the same time, she faced the fear of getting lost in her own depths, of not finding the way out, or of being imprisoned by the shadows that emerged from the lesser-known parts of herself. Carl Jung, the master of depth psychology, taught us that this internal labyrinth is not a mere metaphor, but a psychic reality we all carry. The process of individuation, for him, is precisely this courageous journey into the unknown of the self, where we confront the masks we wear to the world, the shadows we fear to face, and the forgotten and rejected parts of our essence. Navigating this maze is neither simple nor linear. It requires a special kind of courage, the kind that allows us to look within and face our deepest fears, hidden conflicts, and emotional wounds that insist on remaining hidden. It also requires patience to respect the natural rhythm of inner discoveries, which often occur in cycles of advances and retreats, of sudden clarity followed by doubts and confusion. But above all, the traveler of this labyrinth must cultivate love, a compassionate love for oneself that embraces the lights and shadows, the strengths and vulnerabilities, without judgment or haste. The labyrinth of the self is not only made up of challenges and obstacles, it is also a sacred space of revelations and encounters. Each crossroads can offer the opportunity for new insight. Each seemingly insurmountable wall can hide a secret door to a deeper level of understanding. Each internal crisis can be the seed for a blossoming of previously unknown strengths. Sarah learned throughout her journey that advancing in this territory requires silencing external noise and listening closely to the whispers of the soul, those subtle messages that often go unnoticed in the hustle and bustle of everyday life. She discovered that the answers she sought lay not in external sources or ready-made solutions, but within herself. Self-knowledge became the key to transcending the limits imposed by fear, doubt, and social conformity. Jung emphasized that this process is singular and unique to each individual. The labyrinth one person navigates will never be the same as another's, as we carry personal histories, archetypes, and complexities that shape our experience. However, there is a universal constant, the call to wholeness, to integrate the scattered fragments of the self and reveal a harmonious and whole being. This calling may seem like a lonely journey, because it distances us from the collective voices that prefer easy answers and superficial truths. But it is also profoundly liberating, because it allows us to discover our own rhythm, our personal meaning, and our authentic truth. In the labyrinth of the self, light and shadow are not enemies in conflict, but rather inseparable companions in an eternal dance. It is these polarities that together create the richness and depth of human experience. Thus, the inner journey becomes a sacred dance, where each step is a celebration of the complexity, beauty, and authenticity of being. Even when the path seems uncertain, when the exits disappear before our eyes and the destination seems invisible, the courage to continue exploring is what makes the labyrinth a path of transformation, healing, and ultimately, freedom. Because the true journey is not about getting somewhere, but about knowing yourself in all your vastness, with courage, love, and truth. Have you ever felt two forces within you that seem to pull your soul in opposite directions? One that illuminates, awakens, reveals. Another that hides, protects, and frightens. This is the dance of duality that every deep thinker knows intimately. It's a constant balance between what we show the world and what we keep to ourselves, between what we understand clearly and what remains shrouded in mystery. Sarah lived this experience intensely. In her heart, the light of expanded consciousness cried out to awaken, to see beyond the superficial, to face the raw truth. But the shadow, with all its density and depth, was the fertile soil where her roots grew, where talents, wounds, unassimilated truths, and hidden potentials lay hidden. Carl Jung taught us that the shadow is not only the dark, repressed face of ourselves, but also the repository of creative forces, of unexplored possibilities, of parts that have not yet been integrated into our consciousness. The shadow is an essential territory, because without it there is no individuation, the process by which we become whole, recognizing all parts of our being, without rejection or fear. However, balancing this duality is no easy task. How can we avoid getting lost in the darkness of shadows, nor be blinded by the light that can sometimes be superficial? How can we live with the complexity of the self, which is made of contrasts, ambivalences, and paradoxes? The answer lies in dance, a continuous movement of coming and going, of opening and closing, of understanding and feeling, of accepting and transforming. The deep spirit does not seek to erase its shadow, but to embrace it, learn from it, and allow it to contribute to its emotional and spiritual maturity. Sarah understood that this dance is life's greatest lesson. Every misstep, every hesitation, every moment of precarious balance was an opportunity for self-discovery and growth. This learning doesn't happen linearly or quickly. There are days when light predominates, bringing clarity, hope, and lightness. On other days, the shadow looms large, demanding patience, compassion, and courage to be seen and integrated. But it is in this constant movement that the beauty of the inner journey lies. Jung asserted that psychic health is not the absence of the shadow, but the ability to live with it, recognize its messages, and use it to flourish. This coexistence brings something even greater, the development of true empathy. Those who know and accept their own shadows can embrace those of others without fear, without judgment, and with genuine love. You who feel this dance vibrating within you, know that it is the heart of authenticity and profound transformation. If this content resonates with you, like this video to strengthen this network of souls who refuse to live superficially and seek the fullness of being. Like not only to support, but to be a beacon for others who, like you, walk this path of courage and depth. Living on the frequency of truth is an act of bravery that requires balance, humility, and love. It is a constant invitation to dance with life in its complexity and paradoxical beauty. May your dance be light, even in times of heaviness. May your shadow be embraced even in moments of fear. May your light shine even brighter in the days of darkness. This is the journey of the deep thinker, an eternal dance that transforms us, connects us, and liberates us. There is a peculiar and profound loneliness that accompanies those who vibrate at the frequency of truth. It is not the simple physical loneliness of being alone in a space, but an existential loneliness that dwells at the core of our being. It is a silent emptiness that reverberates within and echoes in external relationships, creating a chasm between what we feel and think and what we can truly share with others. Sarah knew this feeling well, amidst conversation and laughter. Even when surrounded by people, she felt like an isolated island in the vast social ocean. The words around her felt like hollow echoes, while her heart yearned for something more, a connection that went beyond the superficial, a truth shared between souls who understand the complexities of life. Carl Jung, with his profound understanding of the human psyche, already warned of this condition. The deeper an individual's consciousness, the greater their likelihood of feeling disconnected from the world around them. Most live on the surface, absorbed by conventions, routine, and social masks that avoid the discomfort of confronting themselves and reality. For those who live on the frequency of truth, this world is a strange, sometimes hostile place. This disconnection isn't just a passing feeling. It's an invisible prison that can consume. The deep thinker yearns for authentic connection, conversations that are true encounters, where words carry meaning and silence feels comfortable. Yet few can keep up with this pace. Few have the courage to dive into the turbulent waters of critical thinking and deep emotion without getting lost or retreating. Sarah realized that despite her social network, she felt lonely, a soul searching for meaning amid empty formalities and superficial encounters. The price of not conforming is high. Jung explains that this loneliness is the toll taken by those who choose not to close their eyes to life's contradictions, pain, and complexities. But this solitude doesn't have to be seen as an eternal punishment or an unbearable burden. It can be a sacred space for self-discovery and empowerment. In the silence of the soul, the thinker finds themselves and the inner truth reveals itself more clearly, fueling the courage and strength to keep moving forward. Sarah learned to embrace these moments of solitude, not as abandonment, but as an invitation to hear her own voice, to reconnect with her essence, and to prepare herself for true encounters, however rare. These encounters are like beacons that illuminate the darkness, opening doors to deep relationships, where authenticity and mutual understanding form the foundation. Jung indicated that the search for these authentic bonds is an essential part of the individuation process, because no one can become whole without the mirror of the other, which reflects our shadows and our lights. Thus, this paradoxical solitude is also an invitation to patience, hope, and faith. Faith in the possibility of genuine encounter, even if it appears only in small moments of true connection. Balancing the need for solitude with the desire to belong is one of the greatest challenges for those whose souls vibrate intensely with truth and depth. However, it is precisely in this balance that lies the potential to build bridges between self and other, between light and shadow, between silence and words. This solitude of the deep thinker is not a sterile void, but the fertile soil where the seeds of true friendship, authentic love, and conscious community grow. Living on the frequency of truth as deep thinkers do is an experience that not only illuminates, but also weighs on them. One of the most intense dilemmas they face is that of authenticity in a world that, for the most part, values appearances and conformity. Sarah felt this tension intensely in her daily life. The need to fit in social settings, avoid hasty judgments, and maintain interpersonal relationships often forced her to soften her opinions, choose words that wouldn't hurt sensibilities, and hide the most troubled corners of her soul. It was as if she lived torn between a public, calibrated, and socially acceptable self, and a private, deep, complex, and sometimes misunderstood self. Carl Jung, one of the greatest explorers of the human psyche, devoted much of his work to the persona, the mask we put on to function in social interactions. He described it as a necessary construct, a role we play to be accepted within groups, fulfilling expectations, and adapting to cultural and social norms. But Jung also warned us of the danger of over-identifying with this persona, to the point of forgetting who we truly are behind the mask. When this happens, authenticity is lost, and the deep thinker can end up trapped in a theater where they constantly perform for others, while their soul is suffocated by the lack of genuine expression. For those seeking inner truth, the persona is a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it offers protection and enables social survival. On the other, it can imprison, denying essential parts of the self. This silent pact, where one gives up one's essence in exchange for acceptance, exacts a heavy toll on the soul, an emotional toll that silently accumulates. Sarah realized that this internal division caused a deep and persistent fatigue, which could not be cured by physical rest alone. It was the fatigue of falsehood, of constantly renouncing fundamental parts of herself. She wasn't alone in this feeling. Many deep thinkers experience this mask exhaustion, an erosion of authenticity that sickens the psyche and weakens the vitality of the being. Jung taught that the path to individuation, the process of becoming whole, passed through awareness of this persona and the courage to reveal one's true self, even if it means facing rejection, misunderstanding, and loneliness. Because living authentically is in itself an act of rebellion. It's challenging a culture that values superficiality, fears judgment, and desires easy acceptance. For Sarah, the journey was not about abandoning the persona abruptly, but about learning to use it consciously, choosing when and how to show herself, without losing herself in the mask. This conscious practice demands a delicate balance, being flexible to adapt to social relationships, but maintaining the internal integrity that preserves true identity. It is a gradual process of reconciliation between the visible self and the felt self, between the social role and the essential being. Jung asserted that only when this reconciliation occurs do we move towards individuation, a state where the self is integrated and authentic in all its manifestations, free from the tyranny of the persona. The challenge for the deep thinker is to understand that the persona is not an enemy, but a tool that when used consciously, allows one to navigate the world without relinquishing the soul. Even living in a world that demands masks, it is possible to cultivate internal and external spaces where truth can flourish, where the true self breathes freely and manifests without fear. In this space of balance, the thinker finds his real strength, the authenticity that does not need the spotlight, that does not fear rejection, that does not hide out of fear. This is the paradox of the profound journey, belonging to the world without ever renouncing one's own essence. On the path of deep thinkers, the encounter with another is never simple or superficial. Each relationship becomes, in fact, a mirror, a reflection that can reveal not only what we want to see, but especially what we prefer to hide. In this encounter, parts of the self that often remain hidden, denied, or repressed are revealed, waiting to be recognized, embraced, and integrated. Sarah felt this dynamic in her most intimate relationships. She realized that the people around her were not just independent individuals, but portals to her own shadows and lights. Friendships, loves, even conflicts, brought to the surface deep aspects of her own psyche, demanding attention and transformation. Carl Jung explained that this experience is the result of the phenomenon of projection, an unconscious process in which we project onto others qualities, emotions, and desires that we have not yet integrated within ourselves. Projection is a bridge between the conscious and the unconscious, a mechanism by which our psyche seeks to deal with what is not fully recognized. This projection can function as a revealing mirror, helping to uncover inner parts that need work, but it can also become a trap, distorting perception and creating illusions about the other. This generates a complex cycle of idealizations, disillusionment, closeness, and distance that Sarah knew well. She observed how, at times, she deeply admired a person, imbuing them with qualities she herself longed to cultivate. At other times, she felt deeply hurt or frustrated, but realized these reactions were reflections of her own inner pain and rejection. Jung believed that this dance between projection and recognition is essential to individuation, the process of becoming whole. By confronting our projections, we are invited to look within, recognize our shadows and lights, and work on our psychological integration. But this recognition is no simple task. It requires humility to admit that our impressions of others are not always true, that they often carry the burden of our own wounds and unresolved desires. Sarah experienced the discomfort and pain of this realization, as questioning her images of others challenged her certainties and undermined the security of her relationships. However, this process was also liberating, as it opened space for relationships to become more authentic, less based on illusions and unrealistic expectations. She learned that instead of blaming others for failures or misunderstandings, she could look within and ask, what does this reaction reveal about myself? What shadow is this person helping me recognize? This exercise transforms conflict. It doesn't eliminate it, but it modifies its quality, turning it into an opportunity for growth, dialogue, and expansion of consciousness. Jung stated that true human encounter occurs when both individuals are able to see beyond projections, recognizing themselves as conscious and integral beings, capable of accepting the other in their totality. This awareness, though rare, is the basis for deep relationships that embrace both light and shadow and encourage mutual growth. If your relationships carry this weight and complexity, know that this is the path of the deep thinker, and sharing these experiences is an important step toward finding support and resonance in other souls also seeking authenticity and truth. I invite you to share your thoughts and experiences in the comments. Sharing your thoughts helps strengthen a community that values depth and authenticity in human relationships. Because in the mirror of the other, when we face our own projections, we find not only who we are, but also who we can become. In the vastness of human experience, much of what truly matters is never verbalized. For the deep thinker, communication transcends sounds, words, or formal dialogue. It occurs in subtle nuances, in the tone of voice, in the tension of the body, in the charged silence, in the gaze that speaks without needing phrases. It is a language of the soul, invisible to ordinary ears, but palpable to those who know how to feel deeply. Sarah learned, time and again, that the conversations around her were like smooth, polished surfaces, a shiny veneer that hid deep oceans of unexpressed feelings, veiled desires, and silenced pain. While others navigated formalities and routines, she grasped the nuances that escaped superficial comprehension. She perceived the weight hidden in a restrained smile, the sadness disguised in hurried speech, the anxiety that trembled beneath seemingly calm words. Carl Jung taught us to value this invisible dimension of the psyche. Much of our psychic content resides in the unconscious, a realm where emotions and images speak their own language, untranslatable into ordinary words, but which profoundly shapes our perceptions and relationships. Unspoken emotions carry immense power because they are often the true messengers of our inner state. They can build bridges when acknowledged and embraced, or erect invisible barriers when ignored or repressed. For Sarah, becoming attentive to this silent language was both a gift and a burden. She not only felt her own emotions but also picked up on the emotional vibrations of those around her, a sensitivity that felt like an open channel to the collective unconscious. The experience of being this emotional antenna often left her exhausted, overwhelmed by an avalanche of feelings that didn't fully belong to her. Heightened sensitivity, typical of the deep thinker, is a double-edged sword. It reveals more of the inner and outer world, but imposes an urgent need for self-care and clear boundaries. It's vital to learn to distinguish between one's own emotions and those that echo the collective, to avoid being drained by the pain of others or the moods of the moment. Jung described the collective unconscious as a vast reservoir that stores not only our emotions but also the emotional experiences of humanity throughout history. Those who tune into this field, such as deep thinkers, end up becoming involuntary vessels of these energies, whether conscious or not. This state demands emotional discipline and self-compassion from the individual. Without them, the mind and body can succumb to fatigue and silent suffering. Sarah understood that true communication beyond words only happens when there is space to welcome what cannot be said, to respect silence, to listen with an open heart. This deep listening creates connections that go beyond the superficial, where souls meet in their essence, even when language fails. The silent language of the soul is a delicate art, which requires patience, empathy, and courage to delve into the mystery of the other without haste, without demands. It is an invitation to leave the safety of the surface and embrace the complexity of the human being in its entirety, with its lights and shadows, joys and pains, certainties and doubts. For the deep thinker, this invisible communication is the bridge that connects the internal to the external, the individual to the collective, the conscious to the unconscious. And on that bridge, despite the challenges, lies hope, the possibility of healing, true encounter, and profound transformation. At some point in life, the deep thinker feels a calling that goes far beyond curiosity or the pursuit of superficial knowledge. It is an inner call to awaken, an expansion of consciousness that opens doors to unknown territories of the soul. This awakening, however, is not an easy balm to bear. It is a heavy burden, carrying with it both the light of truth and the weight of harsh realities that many would rather ignore. Sarah knew this duality well. There were days when clarity illuminated her path, making everything seem more alive, more meaningful. However, there were also long, silent nights, marked by restlessness and a profound sense of isolation. She felt her heightened perception alienating her from those comfortable with the superficial, leaving her in a painful and necessary solitude. Carl Jung, a master explorer of the psyche, explained that individuation, the process of becoming whole, requires us to confront our own shadows. It's a path that challenges the ego and imposes inevitable confrontations with the most difficult aspects of ourselves. The awakening of consciousness is therefore a paradox. While connecting us to a deeper reality, it separates us from the collective illusion in which many live. This expanded awareness reveals the hidden layers of existence, the complexities of human relationships, the power struggles, and the repetitive patterns that span generations. For Sarah, this meant seeing the world through eyes that captured both the beauty and cruelty, the hope and pain that coexist in the fabric of life. It was a vision that brought wisdom, but also the weight of maladjustment. The burden of conscience, as Jung called it, is real. The greater the lucidity, the greater the burden of bearing truths that most would rather avoid. The deep thinker bears this solitary responsibility of being a guardian of truth, even if it means facing misunderstanding, rejection, or social alienation. Society is often unprepared to embrace the intensity of this search. Sarah realized she could no longer choose the comfort of ignorance. She accepted the challenge of living her truth, even when it put her at odds with the outside world and at times with herself. She understood that awakening is not a single moment, but an ongoing process, a journey marked by cycles of light and shadow, growth and recession, ecstasy and doubt. This inner journey requires patience and compassion. It's important to learn to embrace your limitations and respect your soul's rhythm, avoiding the burnout that can arise from excessive self-criticism or pressure for immediate results. For Sarah, creating a safe inner space was crucial for her consciousness to flourish without becoming lost in pain. Jung reminds us that the individual's true path is a dance between the conscious and the unconscious, where balance lies in the middle ground between resistance and acceptance. It is in this balance that the strength of the deep thinker lies, the ability to integrate the shadows, recognize the lights, and continue the journey with renewed courage. Thus, the weight of conscience gradually transforms into a source of power and freedom. Sarah learned that carrying the truth is not a burden to hide behind, but a cloak to wear with dignity. The journey is arduous, yes, but it is also the path to complete authenticity and the realization of one's essence. In this ongoing awakening, the deep thinker discovers that his greatest strength lies in accepting the complexity of life and himself, finally finding a place of peace within the external turmoil. Getting this far is a feat in itself. You, who have delved into the deep layers of the human soul, who have navigated the mysteries of expanded consciousness, the persona, projections, and the silence of the soul, already carry within you a weight and a light that few dare to carry. It's natural that faced with such depth, mixed feelings arise. the exhaustion caused by intensity, the loneliness of understanding, but also the hope born of the recognition that there is a strength within you, greater than the difficulties you've faced. Carl Gustav Jung dedicated his life to studying these inner realms, demonstrating that the true destiny of the deep thinker is not mere adaptation to the external world, but the total integration of the self. This integration is the alchemy that transforms scattered fragments, lights and shadows, virtues and fears, strengths and weaknesses, into a living, coherent unity. But this integration is not the dissolution of internal conflicts or the absence of the doubts that haunt us. Quite the opposite. It is the cultivation of the capacity to embrace all parts of the being without rejection. It is being open to the mystery of one's own complexity. It is knowing that the soul is vast, multifaceted, and paradoxical, and that fulfillment arises from the genuine acceptance of this entire panorama. For you who are on this journey, this is a call to recognize the immense value you carry. Not everyone has the courage to face the depths of their own being. Being a deep thinker is to carry a rare light, a flame that even when it seems fragile, has the strength to illuminate not only your own path, but also that of those around you. Your presence here is no coincidence. You are part of an invisible and powerful community, souls who have awakened to the complexity of existence and are not content with easy answers. If this video touched you, we invite you to subscribe to continue this journey with us, for the path of consciousness is long and richer when walked together. By liking this video, you strengthen this network of transformation. Your every gesture resonates and helps bring this message to more people seeking meaning, depth, and authenticity. How about leaving a comment? Share your experience, your questions, your reflections. This exchange is vital to make the journey less solitary and more meaningful. Here, your voice matters and contributes to collective growth. Understand that the journey of the deep thinker doesn't have to be a solitary one. We are part of an invisible web that connects seekers of truth, where each step toward integration is a victory against the alienation and superficiality that surround us. Every deep reflection, every moment of self-care, every act of personal truth strengthens this inner flame. With your authenticity, you are transforming not only yourself but also the environment around you, even if you don't yet fully realize this influence. Therefore, move forward with courage, kindness, and self-love. The frequency of truth demands sacrifice, but in return it offers a freedom that transcends the ordinary. Remember, you are not alone. In this community of awakened souls, you will find support, understanding, and inspiration to continue being a light, even when the world would prefer you remain in the darkness of conformity. Thank you for being here, for opening your heart to this profound journey, and for being yourself, a beacon of authenticity. Your awakening is a blessing not only for you but for all those who cross your path.